Hi folks, welcome to week 5 boot camp, Communities and Schools University Site Coordinated Learning Pathway, Tracking and Reporting Data. So today we've got some experts with us on the WebEx video viewer, so hopefully you can see us here in the National Office. My name is Jessie Burton, and I am the Director of Culture and Connections for the Network Impact and Operations team. Joining with me here in the room are some other National Office staff who will introduce themselves a little bit later down the road, we are excited to have you here as a part of week 5 of boot camp. We hope you enjoyed the Site Coordinated Learning Pathway course on tracking and reporting data. For today's agenda, we are going to be talking with Gretchen O'Sullivan, who I'll introduce in a moment, about data, tracking, reporting, and then hearing from some of our learning leaders who you've been interacting with over the last few weeks about some of their best practices about data and tracking and reporting. We would encourage you, similarly in the last couple of weeks, to type any of your questions or responses to them in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. So as a reminder, we've got a couple of functions for you to engage today. One is the raise hand feature. So if you'd like to say something over the phone, if you're dialed in by phone, you can click the raise hand feature. It looks like a little gray hand on the right side of your screen. You can see it there in our example slide here. When you raise your hand, we will see that your hand is raised. We will come to you. We will unmute you. So everyone is muted right now, but if you feel like you have something to say, you'd like to respond to a question, use the raise hand feature. The other option is the chat box, which we refer to every time we've met in the last 5 weeks. So you can type in any comments, questions, etc. Those of us here acting as moderators will read your questions out loud or comments out loud, and they'll also be captured in the recording during today's session. So we are really excited to get started and review our learning objectives for the course that you took this week as a part of the boot camp. So part of the learning objectives for this week were around listing student data to be collected, identifying ways in which data is used, list and describe the T2S standards that inform this process, and then finally identifying site coordinator responsibilities and your role in data collection and reporting. And so what we're doing today is really, we're not necessarily reviewing that information. What we're trying to do is enhance that. So we brought in Gretchen O'Sullivan, who is our National Office presenter / subject matter expert. Many of you may know Gretchen from her famous office hours, Wisdom Office Hours she conducted last year and will be reigniting this coming year. And she's also our System 2.0 guru. So really excited to have her here today. I'm going to read a little bit about her bio, and then I'm just going to hand the ball over to her. So Gretchen O'Sullivan joined Communities and Schools in February of 2011. So for those of you who are as good at math as I am, she's been here 6 plus years. She's responsible for network-wide data collection through the end-of-year report. So all of that nitty-gritty detailed data that you all submit, that comes up to Gretchen, and she makes up sort of a user-friendly report in terms of our national impact as well as statewide impact across the network, as well as the state office annual report. She's also training and technical assistance lead for SISDM, which everyone knows and loves well. She's also currently involved in the development of System 2.0, which we're all very much sort of in waited anticipation for System 2.0 and all the feedback that you all have provided over the course of a couple of years to enhance and make your work more seamless through that system. For the National Office, she coordinates data requests for proposals, current funders, and other audiences. Gretchen is truly our data queen, so we are really excited to have her here today and accessible to you all to really ask your questions, provide your feedback and comments, and share a little bit of her knowledge. So right now I'm going to hand the ball over to Gretchen to lead us through the next few slides. Okay, great. Okay.
Thanks, Jessie, for that introduction. And as she mentioned, she's very good at math, and that happens to be something that I excel at as well, but you don't have to be what I call a math nerd or a math genius or researcher to understand the importance of tracking data and to understand the data itself that you're using for your students. And so on a kind of a larger scale, I wanted to remind people about some of the importance of tracking data, if you didn't know already. To the left, you'll see a screenshot of the cover of our student support standards. And of course, that is T2S, which we all are familiar with and know how important it is. But I really want to focus on the fact that the TQS standards and all of the other initiatives that we do from the national office are really, the purpose is really to help you in your job and help you help your students. It's not just for accountability. So in your day-to-day at the school, the purpose of collecting and using data is not just about compliance with the standards. We really want you to be able to help your students succeed. And this information is going to help you tell your story, CIS story, to your principal, help your affiliate tell CIS story to potential funders. And on the right side, you see the logo for MDRC. If you aren't aware, we have actually over a number of years, we've done many studies and evaluations. The most recent one with MDRC, the results are being posted to the National Resource Center soon, or actually I think that they're already up there. And we had a webinar about it the other day. And if you weren't able to join the webinar, Heather Clausen said that a lot of the information that went into the evaluation, a lot of the data that we use to determine whether CIS's model is effective and how well we're working with our students is really from the system. So it's so important that good data goes into our data management system for those reasons as well. And why is data important to you? In addition to all those things that I just said, which you may find very important, they do seem maybe a little disconnected. You know, you day-to-day at your school, you're not really thinking about the larger CIS network or other people's funding or, you know, the national office's needs. But this nice smiling gentleman here who's so happy is the reason why data is important to you. Your students, you know them best, you know what they're struggling with, and with the right data, you can really help them to achieve their goals and succeed in life. Sorry, I'm so slow with advancing to the next slide. Okay. So, in the course that you took, you learned a lot about different kinds of data. Yeah, different kinds of data and how it's collected and reported and the need for data and things like that. I just wanted to kind of reiterate a few things about how you can improve your data collection. First of all, I know the amount of data that does need to be collected and entered into the system or whatever data system we're using right now. It seems like a lot, and it can be very time-consuming. But a lot of this is purposeful. We don't want to just collect data for the sake of just having things there in case we need them eventually. It's really, you know, well thought out. This is the information that's going to help us best serve our students. So while it is a lot, what's going to help a little bit alleviate that overwhelming feel of, oh, too much data, don't have time for it, is to not wait to enter it. If you are tracking student support and you have them kind of in written notes throughout your office or wherever you work, and then at the end of the month try to gather that all up and enter it, it's going to seem like it takes forever. But if you were entering things in on a daily basis or at least a weekly basis, that can really alleviate some of that situation. And the ability to actually take a day or half a day every so often, every couple weeks or a month or something, to just focus on data entry would depend on conversations with your supervisors and your affiliates' guidance. But I think that that's something that has really helped people a lot throughout the network is, you know, being able to either go off campus or have a place where you're sitting and working on data and not being interrupted by your students. Because obviously that happens a lot, and you never want to turn a student away if they come even just to say hi. But that, again, would be something that I encourage people to talk to your supervisors and your affiliate leadership about. And in addition to those sorts of conversations, you should always be having data conversations with your school support teams, your affiliate leadership, the principals, pretty much everybody. And we have our image of a man in a shirt that I probably should buy that says talk data to me. And, you know, again, it might sound nerdy. I love data, and maybe not all of you started out that way, but everyone really does need to be on the same page about what information is required, what information is important, and what information you can get about your students. You know, at the beginning of the year, you conduct needs assessments for your entire school, really, and a lot of that is gathering information from the teachers and the guidance counselors and other people to kind of go into the plan that you create with your students for the rest of the year. So everybody is kind of in it together, and it's not just, okay, site coordinator, you have to come up with all this information. You have to find the data from some magical place. You need to know their grades and their attendance and write down all of your supports and just get it in there, and then we'll give you a gold star. It's really a living, breathing process throughout the year. Okay. So some more information about improving data collection and use will actually come from some of our learning leaders. Tips from Alex and Jessica on how you can strategize and streamline your data collection throughout the year. I think if Alex is available to go first, I think you're unmuted right now, and then please just share your strategies.
Sure. Do you have the case sheet for us?
Yes.
So here to look at. Yep. So this what we're going to show you is something that another track leader and Congress is doing her to work with. And she came up with using OneNote as a tracker. And so when you're working with students or you're talking with parents or changes that you're typically during the day, they found it convenient to go into the system and track that on the spot. So using a case sheet that we found or that we created in OneNote, we track all of our notes and our information this way. So you can see there at the top, you can put in your basic student demographics, grade, age, teacher, whether they're home or not, who they're living with, their contact information. I think that's really useful because you can go to her really quickly and get phone numbers, special education status. We put down, our notes to other community agencies like mental health and that sort of thing. And then we also put their risk factors. And then we put a little note about our risk factors. And then this chart down at the bottom is what we really use that helps us transfer information from here into the system. So that first column, entered in the system, is just a checkbox where we check if we've entered the following information in. Date and time, the system box, you kind of put a shorthand code for whatever category it goes into, so whether it's case management and the category for case management or tutoring or any of those different supports that are listed in the document box system. How we contacted and who we talked to. And then under details, just notes about what happened and what we needed to do for number one. So we just felt this was really useful so that when we go in at the end of the week or the end of the day and put it in the system, we can do it really quickly from that chart. And then we also use this data checklist just to check out that we've entered all the things that we need to in the system. Particularly for working data. Because when you've got a ton of students that you're working with, and it's hard to remember what things you touched and what students you haven't. And then I think this time, I just loaded up an example, just one that's still in. So you can see we list all the students, risk factors, and then you can see down there the actual details of shaping it. And sometimes it's multiple people that you're talking to, that sort of thing. But we've just done it really it's a message to student to have some volunteer to track the
Thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, I really like this idea of, first of all, a checklist, because, as you said, it can be hard to keep track of all of your students depending on how many case management students you have and the other work that you're doing. Instead of having to go and log in the system and be like, oh, did I put in the support for him, or did I put in his grades for the last quarter? You can have it kind of more handy as you go throughout the day, because again, it is not always convenient to be able to use systems to track the information directly unless you have a laptop or an iPad, and even then you might not be able to just type all the time while you're doing other things. So having these sorts of documents, I think, could be really useful.
And I think it might be really helpful, Alex, if we could share these on Yammer, the blank examples, and other folks, if they're looking for ways to streamline their documentation and case notes on case management students that they could utilize or replicate or make something tailored off of your tool. I think that might be a big help for folks on the call.
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
Great.
Awesome. And Jessica, if you would like to share with us your documents in your tips.
Sure. Is there any way you could post the weekly group attendance sign-in form?
Yes. Oh, perfect.
Thank you. So this is a helpful tool that we use at our sites that some of our sites have 13 to 15 active programs a week, and you can have multiple groups going on in one day. So this is just a simple form that we created just as you have that constant flow of kids coming in to your offices and to your program. It's a simple tool to use as students coming to sign in for a program, whether it's a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 group. We found it really helpful for our site coordinators to have white binders for their program. So if they were doing like an 8-week grief and loss group or an 8-week LGBTQ group, they would actually create a binder for each one of those programs, and then each week that the students were served with that particular service, they would come in and fill out this attendance sheet. And then using this form, then track them all in the white binders. Would you mind pulling up the student cohort attendance group list sheet? Awesome. And then from there, what we do is we take our the weekly group attendance sheet that we just showed you, and then we just assimilate a group list for each group. So at the bottom, you can have tabs for each one of your groups that you have, each cohort, for each topic, whether it's social skills, grief and loss, LGBT, anger management, and these are all made-up names, so no confidentiality issues are happening here. So you just listing your student names of each student in the group, and then all the other demographic information you need, your attendance date, marking in when they attended, and then at the top, you can just simply mark at the top when you do a back entry for system, per week or per day, however you decide to do it. So it's just an easy way to track information in that one bit. The third thing we've used is the monthly student case list tracker, which is just an easy tool. Again, all the student names are made up, but it's just an easy way if you're carrying a high caseload, which some of our site coordinators do. Some of our site coordinators have high caseloads and they have a lot of flow, and they really want just a monthly capture of everything that's happening to make sure not only all of our kids are getting served, but all that information is documented in the system. So very simply, just have the student's name, if they're moderate or high intensity, if they are offered a Tier 2 group, because we want to make sure that our students are having multiple levels of intervention, how often you're seeing them, and then each yellow highlighted from the beginning of the week. So we put in when we had them for individual, when we had them for group. And then each week, site coordinators or each day, we take a check mark above each day to make sure that they're doing a back entry or an entry for their kids.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's super helpful too, kind of like the checklist and the other documents to turn that group list into a batch data entry in systems. Seems like it would be really quick and straightforward, a time saver. And you know, the purpose of the course on data and any discussions we have around data is not really to focus on the data management system that we're using specifically, but all of these other things that can kind of help you in your day-to-day work, collect data, access data, put it into whatever system a little bit more easily. So a little later, if we have time, we can talk about the rollout of the new system. But yeah, for now, if you're all familiar with old, reliable systems, you know what we're talking about data entry, or mass data entry and things like that. All right, great. Thank you, both Alex and Jessica. So I wanted to talk for a minute about monitoring and adjusting. And this can mean a lot of different things. You can monitor your students' progress and adjust their support plans. In a minute, another learning leader will talk to us about adjusting kind of your program based on how well things are going throughout the year. But I wanted to talk about a very specific piece of data that we use that is very helpful, very important, called metrics. And a lot of people in the network have always used metrics, essentially, and I'm sure by now you know kind of what they are. Some of our main ones are the ABCs, for attendance, behavior, and the C stands for course performance, but we really refer to it as academics because it can cover GPA and test scores and things like that. So those are the ones that you're probably most familiar with, most asked to use on an ongoing basis. But there's a lot of other kinds of metrics, and it's essentially a measure of success and how are you measuring the students' progress toward their goals throughout the year. But this is fairly new that fairly recently that we've required everybody to use these metrics. So trying to make sure we can be consistent and actually demonstrate the students' progress and goal achievement instead of just asking, oh, did they meet their goal? Sure they did. But how do we know that? You know, so we have kind of, in the past couple years, really pushed forward this idea of using metrics across the network. So I just wanted to kind of get a sense from you all, in addition to kind of our standard metric data, what kind of metrics or what other data are you currently tracking for your students? If you have anything to share about that. We do have a lot of some standard metrics, which are set up in systems that you see every time you create a student support plan in system. But there are other things that you might be using for other reasons with your students. Maybe nobody's using anything other than our standard metrics. Maybe I should have asked that question first. Are you actually using our standard metrics?
So some responses, we're tasked with tracking SCL. So that's something that seems to be something people are regularly tracking. I'd be curious about how you're tracking that, what maybe systems you're using, or types of reports. Yep. And so for folks on the line, I think most people are pretty familiar, but SCL stands for social emotional learning. So how are you tracking the social emotional learning and development of students on your caseload? We'd love to hear from you, Stephanie. What tracking tool or what metrics do you use to sort of gauge progress on social emotional learning? Yet another data platform. So I think that is
yes.
And often it's a struggle, right?
Yeah.
So do you have any words of advice around that in terms of sometimes there's a district platform, there's a system, and then
I realized that sometimes a district platform, and then also if your affiliate is being funded through a certain initiative, and you have to enter data on those students for them in a different website and things like that, it can be a lot. We have, for our part, what we've tried to do at the National Office is explore different ways that we could have, if not a direct link between systems, at least importing capabilities. So if you already had to enter a lot of information into another system, and you get kind of a spreadsheet of that out of there, maybe we can import it into our system. But we're not completely there yet with all the data. But I do at least understand I guess the data fatigue when you're trying to do it multiple different places and they don't talk to each other.
Another response from Alma, so she said they created a home visit form to track home visits. So that's another data point that they're tracking from the touch points as well as progress.
Has any of you struggled with getting the information that you need to measure progress towards the goals, whether you are trying to track SCL metrics or even just regular, GPA or suspensions or something, and you just can't get the information for some reason? I just kind of want to see I get a sense of how much people have been struggling with that the past couple of years that we've required it essentially be tracked, and if you can't get the information, you can't put it in the system.
Yeah. What also might be interesting is if you have struggled to get that information and then worked around the issue, might be something beneficial for other people to hear as well. Yeah. If you do have an example of that, if you could use the raise hand feature, we'd be happy to unmute you and have you share with other folks on the call. Also, our learning leaders, feel free to jump in if that's something that you've struggled with or found a workaround for, trying to collect the data that we require and then figuring out a workaround if the district's difficult or they don't have agreements in place. No struggle. Okay.
Yay! Awesome. So I will be expecting to be able to run a system report for all of your affiliates, and it's in there up to probably, are we at quarter 3 now in the school year? Yeah, metrics better be in there.
So one question that came in, so I'd like to know if other affiliates have a designated data manager who inputs something that the site coordinators provide. Who inputs from something that the site coordinators provide, who actually puts the data in.
Yeah, so a central person for the affiliate typically, or maybe even the state, who is taking the information from site coordinators from their school and actually being the person to enter it. I don't know if people find that to be efficient or not. Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have that situation where you're not even having to enter the data yourself?
And she specifies, so specifically in cases where there are multiple platform entries required.
Oh, right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll leave that question open and folks have feedback. Yeah.
And I just kind of I'm curious. I do get a lot of feedback from the network, but sometimes it's the same affiliates or same states who are willing to kind of talk through certain situations and see if we have advice on it, or if we can kind of at least, not require certain things, if they can't get it that way. But I'm wondering just if other people on the network are struggling with it and just aren't saying anything, and then that'll reflect in your data later. So I just want to encourage you, especially, at the site coordinator level, you're really going to have to go up to your supervisors and your affiliate leadership, and then they can kind of advocate for you to us at the national level. I just want to make sure that you're not just silently hating system, hating data, whatever, without trying to find a solution.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of those comments that just came in, first, that same effect, but more district-facing. They don't have access to Power School, so they themselves actually can't get on. They do it to the data person at the district level to provide it to them, and typically they end up being the last person. So raising that up, your own internal flagpole for say, you may have a great data agreement in place, but I'm not getting the stuff I need in time to actually make effective impacts for students that I'm serving.
Yeah. And so it seems like some districts, some schools really view CIS site coordinators as part of their staff and let them log in to the school system themselves, but I know that doesn't happen everywhere, and you might have quite a lag time So even though now it might be the end of quarter 3 or whatever, you might be putting in second grading period information because this is when you audit. So that makes sense too. I get that.
Another good idea that this year is hosting monthly meetings with site coordinators so they can sit together, ask questions, enter data, and sort of like bond. So almost like a data party.
That sounds fun, I think.
Maybe I make it I
think every affiliate should have a data party.
Yeah.
And again, that might also depend on the school. So even if your affiliate leadership wants this to happen, maybe the principal is really pushing back against you being out of the, off campus for once every other week or a month or whatever it is. So I think there is probably a lot of education and advocacy that needs to happen maybe on that level to make sure that those kind of things can happen. Because I think it would just benefit everybody really. And speaking of the principals and things like that, before we talked about how important it is to have conversations with really everybody about data, don't forget that, again, with the TQS standards, it is required to send regular reports or share them, meet with people to talk about them. For the school support team, principal, affiliate leadership, and this is an example of one of the reports in system, and this is for the behavior metric of suspension. Just don't forget that you can pull the data out of system. I know that it might not always be in the format that you like, and some people might not be super Excel lovers and want to, mess with the data and things like that. But at least the data can come out. Maybe you can talk through with your affiliate how best to present that information. If you guys need guidance on that, please feel free to lift that up so that it comes to the national office. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. And again, it's not only specific to system. Whatever way we get data out, whatever system we're using, thinking of ways to present the information to principals as opposed to a different audience like a funder or something like that, I think it's a really good ongoing conversation to have. And then it'll also help you see the benefit of the data. You're not just putting it in system and saying, okay, I did my job. So that's one of our beautiful reports. It looks like Christmas because that one's color-coded. You can see every student who has 0 suspensions is in green, and everyone who has more than 0 is in red. But anyway, I did want to remind you all, if people still haven't quite gotten the grasp of the standard metrics, there is an information sheet that I don't think is on the NRC currently, but it is on Yammer in the system group, and it is, can I share my screen? I'm going to try to yeah. It might not work. Hold on. Does it work? Yep. Okay. So some of you have seen this before. It lists our standard metrics and kind of describes them. So for each goal, it tells you the kind of metrics that we've established as being good or acceptable ways to measure that information. Of course, there are some others that you could use, but we can talk about that if you want. And this is actually presented in the course as well. There's some guidelines on what is considered off-track, sliding, or on-track. So when you're setting targets for your students, then you kind of have an idea of where they should be optimally. And this is based on our research for students being on track for graduation. So if they have a GPA of below 2.0, they're at a higher risk for dropping out, things like that. So feel free to access that document, which is currently on Yammer, but I feel like eventually will be on NRC to figure out where to put it. Okay, so enough from me. We have another learning leader who wanted to weigh in on monitoring and adjusting. So Daniela would like to share her experience for a few different scenarios, actually, a few different ways that they use data as her affiliates. That would be great.
Thanks, Kristen. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about a few different ways that we were able to use data in our program at a middle school. So the first one, I know that we mentioned SCLs earlier. So this one's specifically around social and emotional learning. We were fortunate to have access to a Success Highways assessment, which measured resiliency skills in our students. So we implemented this assessment with all of our caseloads, and our findings were that a large number of students were struggling a lot with stress. Their levels of stress were really high. I think it was about 30 students that had similar rankings in ability to manage stress. So we developed programming around this data that we aggregated. And what we did with these students was we provided them with 3 stress reduction workshops, and we spread them out throughout the year. And in those workshops, we were able to teach them different strategies on how to cope with stress, different ways that they can implement those strategies in class, and we followed up with them. And then in addition to that, at the end of the year, we did like a hiking field trip where we took all the students on a hike, and they were actually able to use those tools as they were hiking. We did a post-test assessment as well at the end of the year against the Success Highways, and we saw that there was great success, and these students were a lot more likely to be able to manage stress effectively. So that was one in terms of social emotional. Another way that we were able to utilize data was to strategize around student meetings. So we all know that, especially towards the end of the year, we get super, super busy. Everything is coming at us at once. So we really leaned on our color codes to kind of figure out which students need to be met with at which capacity. So we grouped students in 3 different groups. One group of students are students that are high need, that either have more than 2 indicators or have slipped significantly from the previous grading period. We meet with those students one-on-one and really give them high-intensity case management at that point. And then the group of students that might be like a smaller push, those students that might be slipping in one class or have behavior issues in a specific area. We group those students together and meet with them in groups and usually incentivize them so that they can work together in addressing those needs and challenges. And then the last group of students are students that are doing really well. We meet with those students, we congratulate them, sometimes we give them a cupcake or a small treat, and just make sure that we're really recognizing their hard work and that we want them to continue on. So that's how we use our color codes for Denver to year strategize around student meetings. And then last but not least, we're constantly looking at ways to assess our programs, and it can get a little bit tricky at times. So we have developed our own pre-test, post-test, some of which I think can use a little bit of strengthening, but we always do pre-tests at the beginning once we establish an initiative that we want to set forward, and then a post-test at the end to kind of figure out where do we have to monitor, where do we have to adjust the service. So several years ago, we started implementing a program called the Printing Timers. And this program was developed because we realized that students that were making small gains, but big gains, maybe students that were having a hard time turning in homework, finally turned in a homework assignment, they weren't being recognized for these small gains. And we wanted to really push for a culture of positive reinforcement around even the smallest gains that our students are making. So CIS developed an initiative program where each staff member and teacher was able to nominate one student a month. And at the end of the month, we would go into their class, give them certificates, and invite them on a field trip, or do some kind of celebration with those students. We thought it was going great. It was a lot of work, and it was hard financially as well to kind of sustain this program. At the end of the year, we decided to kind of evaluate and figure out what did students like, what did teachers like, what could we do better. So we brought in a random group of students, did a couple focus groups, as well as a post-test assessment. And with them, the students really loved the program, but they felt that there wasn't enough opportunity to be recognized. there were maybe 80 staff members each month, and with only 80 students that were being recognized in, a school of almost 1,000 students. So we wanted to find a way to increase each student's probability of being recognized. So the following year, we decided to do each teacher was able to nominate up to 5 students. And instead of doing a field trip or a party, which would be a little bit hard at that point because there would be so many students, we decided to give them free drunk classes for the next day. So through this assessment, we were able to come up with a much more sustainable plan. It's been about 4 years, and this initiative is still running at the digital school, which is great to hear, and I'm so happy every time I hear stories about it. But we were really able to kind of adjust the service to make it work both for the students, for the school staff, and to make it more sustainable for CIS.
And that's great. Really solid example. Yeah. And I think, just as you were talking, Danielle, some of the, for lack of a better term, vulnerability it takes on the part of an affiliate and the site coordinator specifically to say, like, well, we feel like something's going really well. So let's actually evaluate ourselves and see if this implementation of a service is really doing service for our students. And I think to take that feedback from your students and then adjust how you roll it out the next year is really a great example of how you're really keeping the student services at the really core of your motivation and being willing to sort of reflect back through data on the impact of your services is really really critical.
Yeah, and I really hope that we are presenting ourselves from the national office in that way, that we're encouraging you to not be afraid to fail, to actually just try to find ways that you can improve your practice. We don't, whether it's a national evaluation or teach up standards or something, our purpose or intent is not to point out these affiliates are good, these ones are bad, oh, you're doing a horrible job or whatever. We all want to improve, and internally as well at the national office. But in your job, I think that this would be this is a great example of how you can use data to support your students, and like Danielle said, it's actually beneficial to CIS itself and the students and the staff, everybody. So thank you very much for sharing. And I like that the idea of positive reinforcement also. I had just shown you guys the sheet that showed the on-track, off-track, and sliding for the standard metrics. And some people are kind of shocked at the numbers that you need to kind of hit to be considered on track for graduation, because some students are starting at such a much lower level than that. For example, average daily attendance. If you're, we think that 80 and 90% is kind of, 80% is low, we need to move up to 90, 95. But some people, their kids might be at like 60%, something incredibly low. They just don't come to school. So when you're setting those targets for a single school year, you're not necessarily going to be able to get them all the way up to the official on-track area. But, if you set a reasonable but still strong goals to make them like reach for the stars and stuff, I think that that's great. And then they're going to be, they're still going to feel more positive about being able to meet those incremental goals instead of just saying, well, you're not doing well enough, you have to be all the way up here, even though you're starting all the way down here. So I don't want to overwhelm people with our expectations for your students, especially within each school year. They can only do so much stuff. And that's another reason that we actually changed our progress options our goal achievement options to met the goal, or they could also have not met the goal but made progress. And we're still recognizing all of those students in our numbers, that they were still doing a good job, even though they didn't quite get to the finish line by the end of the year. But anyway, just want to throw that out there. And also about the social emotional learning, which we had just mentioned a few minutes ago, that has become a much bigger kind of area of focus, I think, across our network and at the national office. And we are in the process of developing an assessment that we will pilot and can be used in the future for our affiliates. But right now, if you have any questions about the best way to kind of assess social and emotional learning. We can kind of talk through that another time. And Daniela's example was for success highways, which is a specific assessment that maybe not everybody has access to, but there are definitely other ways you can kind of look at your students' social and emotional needs. Great. And that's all the official stuff they have. So.
Great. So we want to make sure that you all have the opportunity to ask Gretchen or any of the learning leaders questions about things that may have been sticky points for you as you went through the course this week, or just general questions. And I really have to say it's such an asset to have Gretchen on the phone here, or on the webinar here, to answer any questions about data that you might have. I mean, not to put her too much on the spot. We've got 13 minutes, folks. This is your chance. Again, if you have a question, please feel free to use the raise hand feature, and we're happy to unmute you, or if you're more comfortable typing it into the chat box. We'll just start reading them off now. So, from Nova Hernandez, question about Systems 2.0, if I may. Will the next version of System have a reports builder where you can choose the elements you want included in a report? Great question.
That is a great question. And one of the reasons that we went with the vendors that we did choose is because they have robust reporting features. Right now, for the initial rollout for this coming school year, we still basically have the canned reports and other sorts of summaries throughout the school year. I think that the data administrators may start to have additional options for more customized reports and things like that. But at first, it's going to be pretty straightforward like we have in System now, where there are set reports that you can run. There are a few different features that we didn't have before, like you can run it for a certain group of schools at a time, or students that are in a certain situation at a time. But for the most part, right now, they're going to be straightforward and easy. But in the future, we would like to have more of that picking and choosing, building your own query kind of functionality.
Great question. Thanks, Emma. So, any other questions? You're welcome to put that in the chat box. I do have a question for Gretchen. I know that you have historically, this last year you kicked off what was called System Office Hours, which is an opportunity for anyone who has any role in interacting with System. So whether you're a data admin person at an affiliate, or you're the site coordinator at the site level actually putting in all the data, or if I'm that person, I can come to the System Office Hours and ask questions about my sticky issues or troubles with using System. I know that we're also rolling out System 2.0, but just to give folks an idea of when you might be opening up office hours again.
Oh, yeah. And actually, we just had one yesterday.
Okay.
And the topic of yesterday's office hours was the System 2.0 rollout. And I can just throw up the timeline if you all want to see it. As Finn, our project manager, made a nice little timeline.
Okay. Is there somewhere they can find this timeline in their room as well?
Not right now, actually. I'm here, so I just made it for me yesterday. But I have lately notes that I was going to send to the data administrators, my data contact people. How can I get back to share this on System?
And then I see a question, will System 2.0 be up and running for the 17-18 school year? The answer is yes.
Yes. Okay, you see this one? Okay, so he made it a little bit more fancy and stuff like that. So just so you're all aware, because I know it can be overwhelming to think, oh God, there's a whole new system I have to learn, and how is this going to happen? It's happening very soon. I'm not going to be here this summer. Stuff like that. So I totally get it. So I just wanted to highlight a couple things, because some things are going to be for the affiliate and state data administrators, and some are going to be much more relevant to you all as site coordinators. The top kind of list from the top down is showing chronologically essentially our training that we're going to have virtually throughout the spring and summer. And then below, the timeline across is when different parts of the site will be released for use. So Leadership Town Hall obviously is coming up very soon at the very top there, and that's where we're going to demonstrate the system to whoever happens to be at Town Hall. And then the site coordinator trainings really start on June 5th and go down from there. So, and this is a tentative schedule of different topics, but you get a general idea of what's going to happen. So we'll be doing the virtual trainings and recording them. So if you're not here over the summer, your affiliate leadership hopefully will create a plan for when you should all be watching those and how they're going to incorporate them into their own trainings for you at the beginning of the new school year. We know there's going to be a learning curve for this, so you may be a little delayed in putting good data in there until maybe a little after the school year starts. And then at the bottom, the training site is going to be released to you guys on May 15th, right after Town Hall, so you'll at least be able to kind of see what it looks like. And the production site, the real site where you're going to put data, is going to be released June 5th. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
Great. And I know that, Gretchen, you and your team are really working hard on making sure that all the trainings and tools and support materials are available when you roll out so that people can feel they don't have to have that panic sense.
Yeah, I'm really trying not to overwhelm you guys. We'll have like videos that are single topic short. You just learn one thing at a time and can kind of build on it throughout the year. And it's training, a written training manual, that kind of stuff.
And I know that there are affiliates going through the pilot process right now. So there are affiliates who are doing real work just like you folks on the line and are able to sort of say, this is really user-friendly, this really isn't, and it's helping guide and inform the way that we're building out the system. And
their feedback has been very helpful. And we've already adjusted a lot of different things in the system since we started, which is part of the reason it takes so long to develop this. So I appreciate everybody's patience through this process, and I hope that it is going to be good for you guys. And after people kind of figure out, and get comfortable with it, I hope that it really is useful for all. Awesome.
Well, last question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. So from Lauren Ingliston, and this is a great question. So any tech coordinators that you know of or anyone on the line that have iPads or touchscreen devices that they can kind of carry around with them in order, like, throughout their day, when things get bustling, they still can be putting data in or tracking some case management information about their students. Any best practices you see around the network in regards to that?
Actually, no, because I don't know how many people, obviously some of the things cost money unless you have a funder that can provide them. So I don't know how many people are able to have their whole staff has that information. I do know that the system is going to be compatible with, it's supposed to be compatible with mobile devices. I don't know if it's optimized for each screen and things like that, but you should be able to put information in on the fly as you go. And I also don't know if some people have experienced issues with accessing kind of Wi-Fi in their school due to the firewalls and things like that. I know that they've had email issues in the past with even just trying to recover their password from systems. So I think that on-site might have some of the technology situations that should be.
So worth investigating before investing in the iPad. Great. So Gretchen, can you take us back to the very last slide before we share some of the bootcamp resources? I just want to say thank you to Gretchen and for all our learning leaders for all of your great examples and sort of real life, day-to-day examples of how to use data, why it's important, why it matters to not just the national office, but to the students that you serve. And we know that when we are engaging with those students in real tangible ways, it's good to document that information, be able to express all the positive outcomes that we're seeing for those students, and then in some cases, really monitor and adjust the work that we're doing. So thanks, Gretchen and learning leaders, for all the work you do in leading us in this effort. So again, bootcamp resources, as a reminder, so the National Resource Center is always there and available for you. I know Gretchen mentioned a couple of great resources on the National Resource Center related to data. It's also a really great spot for all things student support standards. So if you've got questions about resources that might be relevant to the work you're doing, the Resource Center is kind of your one-stop shop for national office resources for your work. So check that out. The password is EMPOWER. and bookmark that in your browser. The Yammer group is specifically for this bootcamp experience. So if you have questions, you want to see additional resources, we will post some of today's resources in that Yammer group. So we'd encourage you to go back there and check that out. Also, some of the exciting ideas that have come out from today, if you want to share more about those, please go to the Yammer group to share with one another in that way. Finally, if you have questions about the bootcamp process, we have 1 week left. We have a very exciting and special guest next week, so we're really looking forward to that. Something that's so special, but it's not sure again. So contact us at the CISU Bootcamp at DivNet.org email address for more questions or questions you have as you're going through the bootcamp process. For information on the university and CISU University, if you're having LMS issues, if you're taking your courses, please email the CISU at DivNet.org email address. And finally, don't forget to register for next week's webinar. You can find the links to all of those on your learning management system on CIS University, or in any of the emails that we send out weekly. You'll get a new email Monday morning. And again, we are having a very special guest next Thursday for our very final bootcamp webinar. So you do not want to miss that. So thanks everyone for your time today. Thank you again for Gretchen and our learning leaders, and we are excited to see you guys next week. Thanks.